Hi, Tony.
Hello, Aaron.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello, John Heath.
How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Good to be here with you all this evening. Happy President's Day.
Hello, can you hear me? All right. I'm having a little connection trouble. It gave me an error message that I needed to upgrade my Zoom client in order to join the meeting. I don't know. Aaron, are you on?
Yes, I am.
Hello, did you change something in the Zoom settings or is it just me?
Probably just you. There's a couple security settings that pretty much require people to have an updated version of Zoom. So that might have been it.
Wow, that's probably it.
But it's kind of
Security
necessary.
settings. Okay. Well, hello, and thank you for setting this up.
Welcome.
Hi, Susan.
Hey, John, how are you? Thank
I'm
you for
good.
being here.
Oh, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure.
It's my pleasure, my honor to have you here. I'm still getting organized. I apologize for being so behind the curve today. But it's 7 o'clock and we can get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Valley Vote. I'm sorry that we couldn't meet in person today. We had some paperwork issues that we had to resolve and we couldn't get it done in time, but we hope to have it done for our next meeting. But we are very honored today to be talking about initiatives and to have John Heath with us, who is the past president and co-founder of the United Homeowners Association. Do I have that right? In an area of Los Angeles that is prime targeted for gentrification. And he is here to talk with us today about the initiative that was filed to stop SB 9 and SB 10. So we'll get to that in just a moment. I just want to do a little housekeeping. I want to say welcome to Valley Vote. This is a nonpartisan civic organization in the San Fernando Valley that was originally founded as part of the secession movement But we are still here and we are educating the public and trying to do as much as we can to organize people and get people interested and informed about local government issues. And it's always really important, especially during an election year, that people know where to go to get information and what is going on in their community. Otherwise, we find out too late, which is what's been happening for as long as anyone can remember. So we always start with a flag salute. And I don't know if we have a flag because I don't think Denny is with us. And he's usually the one with the flag. Aaron, do we know if we have a flag? Well,
I see one behind Benito Bernal. He's standing with the flag behind him.
Can you spotlight him?
Yeah, hold on a second.
Okay.
Right there.
There we go. Hi, Benito. Welcome. I forgot to ask if there are any candidates here. We'll get to all of you. So I'll mark you down.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, so if you'll join me in a Zoom Pledge of Allegiance, I would appreciate it. Hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Thank you very much. Okay. So who's here who's a candidate? Raise your hands, and Aaron, if you would spotlight everybody, we'll try to give everybody some time. So Benito for School Board District 6.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. District 6. And anybody else yet who's on the call, who's running for an office this year?
Looks like Roxanne has her hand up, Susan.
Okay, Roxanne, I don't have the ability to see everybody because I'm using my phone because I had connection problems. So Roxanne
It looks
here
like
to talk to us.
Scott Silverstein.
Scott, welcome. Okay, we will get to all of you. And you are running, Scott is running for City Council, District 3. Is that right? I believe that's right. Okay, if anybody else pops in, let me know. And now I'm going to introduce John Heath, my good friend and my buddy in the trenches of trying to get initiatives qualified. It is a very steep climb, but
Indeed.
but I'm honored that you're in the fight with me, and I'm happy to be in the fight with you. So I'm going to turn it over to you to tell everybody what's going on with our neighborhood voices and what is it and why is it so important?
Absolutely. And thank you all so much, Susan. Thanks for that gracious introduction. And good evening, neighbors. I am John Heath, as Susan said, and just want to thank her and you for inviting me to spend a few minutes talking with you this evening about a very important issue that affects every California community. Before I get started, I want you to know I'm a native Angelino. I live in unincorporated View Park, Windsor Hills, which is near the Crenshaw district. As Susan mentioned, we are kind of ground zero for gentrification and outside investment. I'm sure you all have heard some of the news about how Wall Street investors and folks outside the community have been snapping up single family properties. That is definitely happening big time in South Los Angeles, as I'm sure it is in the Valley as well. So we can talk more about that later. Also, I work in South Los Angeles doing affordable housing development and property management. So this is an area that I know a little bit about, and hopefully everyone here is already aware, but just in case you have not heard, our state government, being the wonderful folks that they are, have effectively eliminated single family zone communities. As of January 1st this year, with a stroke of a pen, Governor Newsom signed SB 9 and SB 10, which I'm sure you all are familiar with last fall. Both bills took effect as of January 1st. While SB 10 requires an opt-in by local communities, SB 9 effectively upzoned every single family zone property in California, with a few exceptions, but essentially it's all of them, to allow as many as 6 or 8 housing units to be built where one house currently stands. And neither you nor your local government can do anything or say anything about it. None of these new housing units are required to be affordable. There are no requirements that they be owner occupied. There's no environmental review. There's no additional fees to offset the impact of new development on our infrastructure. We're just stuck with this, folks. And it's supposedly to deal with affordable housing. It will not. These laws will incentivize developers to come into our communities at a faster clip than they already are, buy up available properties, raise them, and replace them with multifamily developments that harm our environment, don't create affordable housing. In fact, there's some very strong arguments and data that shows that increasing housing density actually makes housing less affordable. And by the way, this policy is going to disproportionately impact communities of color and working class neighborhoods, not only here in Southern California, but statewide. So anyway, if your community is anything like this one, you enjoy a diverse mix of people, housing types, and land uses, we certainly have our share of multifamily property, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with density as long as you plan for it and have the infrastructure to support it. But, we all want to see safe, healthy environments, especially as we're emerging from this crazy pandemic. If somebody can tell me what motivated these folks in Sacramento to come up with these laws, I welcome your theory or analysis, because I can't figure out what they were thinking or why they did it at a time when we need our state government leaders to be really focused like a laser on housing the homeless and creating more affordable housing. They're advancing these policies that basically let these developers loose to build more market rate housing in the middle of single family neighborhoods, taking away opportunities for home ownership, harming our environment, and driving housing costs even higher. Let's see, I'm skipping over stuff because I don't want to just go on and on here. What to do about this? That's really the question. A group of community leaders and locally elected officials from all different political perspectives formed our Neighborhood Voices last fall, and we put forth a ballot measure to amend the California Constitution that would allow local government to supersede state law when it comes to land use planning and zoning. So in other words, your city or county could agree with, okay, Sacramento, you want to upzone single families, that's fine, we'll go along with that. Or if there's a different or better approach that makes more sense at the local level, which more than likely there is, since one size definitely does not fit all, local governments would be able to supersede conflicting state land use planning and zoning law. As a real estate professional and as a proponent of the Our Neighborhood Voices initiative, I can assure you that our California's affordable housing crisis is definitely not based on supply and demand. That's not an issue that will fix this crisis. In fact, if you look at census data from 1960 and from a couple years ago, there were 2.88 people per housing unit in 1960, and there were 2.74 people per housing unit in 2020. So there's actually less people per housing unit now than there were 50 years ago. And on top of that, there's 40,000 vacant housing units in San Francisco and 80,000 vacant units in Los Angeles. So, how much more supply do we need before the cost of housing goes down? I think you get the point. Our affordability crisis is quite simple. It stems largely from wages failing to keep up with housing costs. And that's why putting forth this initiative just made so much sense. We recently, in fact, last Friday, we announced that we're transitioning our signature gathering activities to 2024. That'll give us more time to build a strong grassroots statewide movement. We want to get to several 100,000 supporters that understand what we really need to see in terms of land use and zoning policies to take care of all our people statewide. The constitutional amendment and the initiative is a powerful tool that will allow cities and counties to supersede conflicting state land use and zoning laws and really make local communities the final arbiter of land use planning and zoning decisions that aren't statewide affairs. It will not affect environmental, fair housing, landlord-tenant, or other non-land use areas of the law. And don't believe anybody who tells you that we have to upzone single-family neighborhoods and increase density to create more affordable housing. There's plenty of publicly owned space, vacant commercial property, especially in the wake of the pandemic, and other areas that can be repositioned to create the affordable housing we need without destroying our existing communities. Our friend, Councilmember Paul Koretz from Los Angeles said that, they're doing this basically for no other reason than they want to destroy single family communities. And unfortunately, I think he might be right. The initiative has been endorsed by more than 100 local officials from both parties, by the Southern California Association of Governments and many others. And we invite everybody listening here tonight to go to ourneighborhoodvoices.com to learn more, sign up as a supporter, volunteer to help us organize, and donate whatever you can to our cause. You can find us on social media using at our neighborhood, our voices CA, or hashtag our voices CA. And with that, I want to open it up for any questions that folks may have, or Susan, if you wanted to pose any
Okay.
questions.
Well, I want to start with one. This measure not only has no affordable housing, but it has no requirement for planning for infrastructure. Is that right? I mean, the SB 9 and 10, not your measure, but SB 9 and 10.
Right. And that, again, that's what raises the issue about, what were they really trying to accomplish? Because there's no affordability requirements, there's no owner occupancy requirements. So it really does. Somebody said, if you were looking for a bill or a statute piece of legislation that really incentivizes developers to come into communities and do the wrong thing and create less affordable housing, this would be the bill to adopt. So that's what they did.
Okay, I see Scott Silverstein has a question. Scott, welcome. You can unmute yourself if you're muted.
He did, I think.
Okay.
And then he disappeared.
Actually, I'm sorry, my hand was left up from the last question
Oh,
All
okay.
right.
earlier on. So sorry.
No problem.
Okay, then Tony Wilkinson has a question. Tony,
Hi,
can you unmute? There you are.
thank you.
Okay.
For the change to the 2024 goal, John, what can we do to make certain that we stay in front of the voters for this year's election and take advantage of it so that people don't just say, oh, well, that's late, so I don't want to care. No, we want to get double the people.
Right.
So how, do you have any plans how can we help you make certain we still keep it in front of everyone?
Excellent question. Thanks, Tony. A couple of things. One, we're still having our weekly meetings. In fact, if anybody here wants to join us this Wednesday at 6 p.m., you can go to Our Neighborhood Voices and click on the resources page, and all that information will be there to link to the meeting Wednesday at 6. We're going to, Tony, to your point, we're going to put out what essentially is going to be, information, handouts, and other materials to try to really get folks educated so that our supporters and neighbors and family members who may not know, land use and zoning is such an unsexy and boring, kind of topic. Is really difficult, even when you're out there collecting signatures, to grab people and say, hey, this is something that's affecting you. Especially if you live in a single family community, this is affecting you right now. So, just getting people to understand that and doing as much educating and advocacy work that we can do between now and when we come back to the people with a newly cast initiative is part of the plan. We'll continue putting up our ads on social media. I don't know if anybody has seen some of our ads on Facebook, but Tony, unfortunately, like anything else in politics, money and all that stuff that's required to really get the message out is something that we need to be effective. So, fundraising and getting more people in the network and doing a lot of that small dollar donor work is going to be important.
If any donors will allow us to do it, or if you have the control, we might want to use some money on education now, as opposed to direct signature support now, because that will, once we get the mass of people who care, then it's going to be easier to get the signature gathering money, I think.
Absolutely. That's absolutely the objective. So thank you for that.
So I have a question. Is there a place where people can find out where these permits have been pulled to turn a single family home into a duplex with 2 or 4 ADUs behind it? Anybody know if that's accessible?
Yeah, that's a great question, Susan. It probably depends. I know in the city of Los Angeles, probably some combination of the planning department or building and safety, probably more like building and safety will have that information. But, again, wading into that morass that is 201 North Fig or wherever you end up going to try to get that information can be, let's just be generous and say challenging.
Challenging. I'm just thinking that if there was, hypothetically, and I know this would be extremely difficult to set up, but if there was a page on your website that just posted public information about where these permits have been pulled, because there aren't going to be any hearings, there aren't going to be any approval processes. There's only going to be the building permit, right?
Right.
And everything else is too late. So it would be interesting for neighbors to be able to find out about that and be aware of it And that would accelerate the education process when you see these fences going up next to your property.
Absolutely. As they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and we're definitely going to look at material that we can put up on the website, not just to highlight what's going on under SB 9, but some of these other laws that encourage densification of urban areas. I think we can show, the harmful impacts that those have had. In some, I hate to, as an affordable housing guy, I feel like I'm stepping on my own foot here, because there is a way to do this that makes sense, that creates housing that's affordable, that's an uplift to the community, and, is all the things that it's supposed to do. But unfortunately, the behavior that's being incentivized by the recent laws coming from Sacramento doesn't do that. So
Right.
that's the thing, is to, try to highlight the areas where they've gone wrong and point out the way to do it that makes sense. That's correct.
Right. Well, Glenn Bailey has a question. Glenn, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, thank you. A number of neighbor councils are considering this proposal, and I'm just wondering if there's any prospects for a motion to be introduced to create a council file, open up a council file, so that neighbor councils have something to file their action against. Any word on that?
Are you talking about with respect to an implementation ordinance for SB 9 or the Our Neighborhood Voices initiative?
No, your initiative, a council member a friendly council member who introduces a motion. I mean, if SCAG's supporting it, then that means.
Right. Yeah, thanks, Glenn. You would think that the LA City Council would be supportive, but unfortunately, so far, only a couple of council members have really expressed a lot of support. We'll kind of see how that plays out. We've gotten an awful lot of support from a number of other cities, which is great. In fact, I'm going to be speaking before Laguna Hills, I think, tomorrow night. They're taking up a support resolution. So, anybody that's aware of a neighborhood council that wants to support the initiative and adopt a support motion or resolution, we encourage that. Just because we paused on the signature collection does not mean that we don't, we're not still interested in getting that kind of support. So thanks, Glenn.
Well, it's really important because this is a long education process, and as there's kind of a time lag between when these bills were signed and when the shovel goes into the ground. So it's going to be a period of time before people feel this, and once they feel it, it's going to be a brush fire of public outrage.
Exactly.
So I think your timing might have worked out for the best. Aaron has a question. Aaron?
Yeah, just a brief, more suggestion. You're talking about outreach for this and getting people informed and more people knowing about it. I think one way to do that, myself being a web developer, on your own website, having more like a map scenario where people can enter maybe their zip code, and then all of a sudden it'll show locations near them that they can be interested in. Would be really nice. So, either a map or a search within your boundaries.
Got it. Yeah, great idea. Thanks, Aaron. I'll pass that along.
Do you know how to develop that? Is that something in your sphere?
I had a feeling that was going to be asked. I think I do, but if I don't, I know people that can do it and they can help me out too. So
I'll be in touch.
I get to say yes if that's the case.
Okay.
Great.
I'm making a note for the other initiative.
And I'm going to drop my email in the chat just in case anybody has a question and wants to follow up. But Aaron, thanks. That's a great idea.
Hey, John, the chat usually doesn't show up in the recordings. So if you want to say what your email is, that might be better.
Yeah, absolutely. It is jheath. That's JHEATH @UHAWH, like Windsor Hills, VP, like viewpark.org. So jheath @UHAWHVP.org. Thanks.
Thanks, John.
Very good. Okay, well, now I can see we have 2 more questions. Tony, do you have a question?
Just a quick thought on the chat, because Aaron has allowed us to save the chat. So if you're on a computer, as opposed to a smartphone, you can hit the 3 little dots on the lower right hand of the chat box, and it will allow you to click on something that says save chat. So it is a good thing to put in the chat, and you can save it, and it's saved as a text file on your local computer. That's all. Thanks.
Very good. Okay. More questions for John?
I think I see Ernie trying to
Yeah.
gesture.
Okay. Ernie,
Yeah,
go
I have
ahead.
a question, John. The statistics that you presented on the vacancies in Los Angeles and San Francisco, what is the basis of that? What baseline data do you have? Because we've had a COVID exit of a lot of the properties are idle in the valley. You just have to drive around. So kind of give me a feel for what we're dealing with here, so we have a real base of what we're dealing with.
Absolutely, Ernie. Those were conservative numbers. The 40,000 from San Francisco is based on an article that I just saw from KRON San Francisco Channel 4. And the 80,000, I think, is kind of a conservative estimate. There was a study done by UCLA Law, SAGE, and a couple other organizations a few years ago. Let me do this, Ernie, if you don't mind. I will put a link to both of those in the chat, and that way you can kind of follow up and take a look and, you know, kind of check the veracity of that data for yourself.
So the other question, that's great. I appreciate that.
Sure.
The other question is the density of the homes in the valley. And I guess you said 1950 and currently 2.77, something like that.
Right. Actually, that was a statistic for all of California. But if you look at total population and total housing units, and you divide total population by the total number of housing units, that's how you come up with the 2.88 people per housing unit in 1960, and 2.74 people in 2020.
So I might add a third question. The Calvet organization.
Are those housing density numbers? Do you think that's accurate? Do you think that takes into account all the unlicensed units, people living in converted garages, and people doubled up in condos and apartments without saying so? Do you think that's
probably not? It would pick up whatever the census gatherers collected for those years, Susan.
Oh,
so it's as accurate as the census data is. Let's put it that way. Yep. Ernie,
well, that's probably good.
Ernie, you were about to say something else?
One other question. How do the Calvet program for veterans in California and these laws, are they usurping what's been established for veterans in the state?
Ernie, that's a great question. You guys asked some fantastic questions. I would answer you like this. Calvet and some of the other outstanding programs, I mean, Section 8, a long-standing federal program, those are fantastic programs that actually, if they're given a chance to be effective, really work well. The issue becomes, like with the Calvet, if you've got a vet or anybody that's got, support for first-time home purchase or something like that, what good does it do if you've got, now you've got to compete with Wall Street and all these outside and international investors that are coming in and snapping up all our single-family homes and developers that want to knock them down and build mini apartment buildings. So, that's the point, is that, we have to be very, as Californians, we have to be very conscious about what type of environment we want to see. There's a reason why single family neighborhoods exist, and it's because a lot of us enjoy them and enjoy living in them and want to preserve them. There's nothing wrong with triplex, duplex, multifamily properties. I mean, we've got some of those in our neighborhood. I'm sure you guys do as well, but there's no reason to start dropping those right in the middle of single family neighborhoods that I can see, because it's certainly not going to help with homelessness or housing affordability.
I think I'm going to say one other observation I've made. There's some additional dwelling units going in the valley. I know they put them on skids, so there's no, it may be a flaw in the law. I think they're supposed to have a foundation of some sort and the proper utilities. So that's something that's going on. I know, I've seen it. Sharing information.
Yep. Thanks for that. There's a lot of, as you guys know, real estate is such a dense area. And, when you start talking about housing and different housing sectors and all that, there's, some very specific things that impact every part of the market. But I would say that our biggest issue in California is on that lower end of the spectrum. That's where we have the crisis. That's where we really need folks to focus. This building more and more and creating more market rate housing, that's not helping us. That's actually adding to the problem. But thanks for those comments, Ernie.
Well, thank you, John. Any more questions for John? Okay. You're
All
welcome
right.
to stay, or you're invited. You're invited to stay, but you're not obligated to stay. Thank you
Well,
so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you all. Thanks, Susan. I appreciate that. I'm going to post a couple more things in the chat, and then I'm going to go have my dinner, and I'll be listening to you guys in the background. But thanks a lot. I enjoyed it.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you again for coming. Best of luck with the initiative.
Thanks a lot.
We
You
will
too.
stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Okay, let's talk to some candidates. Who's ready to talk to candidates? We have Benito, we have Roxanne, we have Scott. We'll go in that order. Benito, are you there?
I'm right here, and thank you once
Okay.
again. It's a pleasure to be here with each and every one of you. For those of you who don't know, Benito Bernal, I born and raised in the city of Los Angeles, and I was an employee for LAUSD for 30 years, former union vice president with SEIU, Local 99, representing the classified employees with the school district, and also a former member of Valley Vote. When Valley Vote, we were first going through the secession movement. So it's an honor and a pleasure to be back here. I wish we were doing this in public and face to face, because I'd like to ask a question about how many of you out there today have children that are attending LAUSD. How many of you are parents, and how many of you are unhappy with everything that's going on? Obviously, I would probably see almost everybody who has a child in the school system raise your hands because of everything that's taking place today. I just wanted to come here today and let you guys know that I am running for office. My Facebook is Bernal space LAUSD. Come on down to my Facebook. You can see a lot of the issues. I don't want to take too much time away from you guys, but all the issues that I stand on. But at the end of the day, 30 years of experience driving a school bus, being in supervision, dealing with students, dealing with staff, dealing with parents, dealing with administrators. I think the 30 years have prepared me for this position. So everything that's going on against God, against family, the destruction of the family, and the breakdown of our police department is unacceptable. So I will be that voice to make sure I fight for the safety of these students and the future of these students. I thank you for your time. God bless you. You all have a great evening.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Thank you,
I do.
Benito.
What district? Say again, like say the area, not just the number.
District 6 is pretty much the Northeast San Fernando, Pacoima, San Fernando, Sylmar, North Hollywood, a little bit of Sunny Tahunga, Panorama City, some of Van Nuys, some of North Hollywood and Mission Hills, Lakeview Terrace. So it's a pretty large district, but it's where I was born and raised. I spent the last 57 years of my life here. So we're ready for this. Good to see you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me just see if I can do that. I've been made the co-host of this meeting, which I don't know how to do, and I'm on my phone, so I don't have a big screen, but we're going to tough it out. Thank you all for being here. Welcome, David. Okay, Roxanne, would you like to tell us a little bit about what you're running for? Roxanne
Well,
Beck-Vogue, everybody.
Hi, good evening, everyone. And John, thank you. If you're still listening in the background, thank you for a great presentation. I think what John said and what Benito said, they're all part and parcel of the one battle. There is only one battle that's happening in California, and it's centered in Los Angeles. And it's the battle to maintain life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. There's pretty much nothing else. And what makes land use sexy is to point out that all these laws that they're passing and extending eviction moratoriums and all these things are just theft. They're legalized governmental theft. And what's going on with our kids is kidnapping. They're holding them hostage in these crazy school situations where they're doing everything but teaching to them. So what I'm considering doing is running for the County Board of Supervisors, which most people ignore. But they are more powerful than 41 governors because LA County is that large. It's the 5 women. You may think that it's the 5 women of The View because the cast members are wacky and wackier. And then there's one lone voice of reason, Catherine Barger. But the truth is that they quietly and surreptitiously have been handing the reins of Los Angeles over to criminals, and Barbara Ferrer running public health. So that's what I'm considering doing. I do encourage everyone, certainly on Tuesdays, to go to LACountyBOS.gov. You can look it up. They live stream their meetings and they're horrifying. And as much education as you guys get here at Valley Vote, your hair will curl when you watch an LA County BOS meeting. I'll just leave you by saying that they did the Pledge of Allegiance to open their last meeting and ended it with liberty and justice for all someday, as if we didn't have it. So that should summarize where they are. If I have pulled papers, we're talking to lots of people, and if I have an official campaign when I have an official campaign website, I will come back and say hi again.
Okay, much appreciated, Roxanne Beckford Hogue, thinking about running for the LA Board of Supervisors. And this would be the seat that Sheila Kuehl is vacating because
And it's
she got
from
caught.
Malibu. Yes, Malibu all the way to my house in North Hollywood.
And I think it goes further west than that. I think it comes out to Woodland Hills, District 3.
Oh yeah, no, it's all the way to the water. But then my house is the eastern.
Oh, you're the
edge.
eastern edge. Okay. Okay. So that's the seat that Sheila Kuehl is vacating. She ran unopposed last time, and everything was going swimmingly for her until she went to an Italian restaurant the very night that she voted to close all the restaurants because it was so dangerous. So dangerous. Okay. Scott Silverstein, running for City Council, I believe. Oh, I forgot to ask, are there any questions for Roxanne before we go to Scott? Any questions for Roxanne? Okay, we're good. Scott, are you there?
Yes. Hi, I'd like to say hello to everybody. I just got in from 5 hours of signature gathering. That's fun. I mean, I'm learning every person in my neighborhood up and down the streets. So right now I'm I'm a couple short, but I need to get to that 1,000 number. So I'm running for CD3, which is the Southwest Valley, and I'm here to replace a rogue council person that has since just gone rogue against everybody that he represents. He's doing things here that he is not running against. He's not running through the pipeline of any of the organizations that need to know about what he's doing. I've worked with him over the years, and he's just more and more arrogant towards his constituents. Right now, I don't know if many of you have read, but he just was caught, and I mean that just as it sounds. He was caught pushing through a couple of things that really upset the people. And that is right across the street from Taft High School on Ventura Boulevard. This council person is pushing through 246 rooms for homeless shelters. This is immediately across the street from a high school. And he's doing this without telling any of the constituents. So we happen to catch it on the agendas for the city council. And I will say that one of them is being pushed by Sheila Kuehl. So as fast as we could get her out, and then we work on Blumenfield. But he has no respect for the people that he represents any longer. So I stepped into the race. I am a 30-year resident of the Southwest Valley. I am on numerous boards. But just to let you know, we were talking about the affordable housing. I was on the committee that drafted the Warner Center specific plan. That was 8 years in the making with hundreds of meetings. And we have written into that plan the ability to have 19,000 new apartments built in just to Warner Center. And I could tell you that we have approached the council person. He will not modify that plan to require affordable housing. The only thing it's doing is allowing higher densities because of our location for transit-oriented districts and locations. But it's been very difficult dealing with his office. They've gone pretty much dark because it's getting closer to the election season, and it's at the point now where we need as much help as we can to try to regain a majority on the city council of people that think before they vote and actually think of the issues from all sides. I call myself a pragmatic centrist. I will listen to issues that come from anywhere. If it's a good idea, I will implement it. What I won't do is have this discussion with the with the fringes. That's not where I come from. I really am a centrist, and I listen to the people. So I just want to introduce myself. Here I am. I was with Valley Vote when it was a secession time, and it's nice being back. So hi, Susan.
Hi, Scott. Thank you for dropping by. What's your website so everybody can find you online?
Website is electscottsilverstein.com. My Facebook is Scott Silverstein for City Council, CD3. I have Twitter and all the other social medias, but ask me how to get there. I couldn't tell you. So,
Okay, well, we just really need your website so
Yeah.
people can find you.
that's it. I
And,
appreciate it. Thank you.
And thank you very much for dropping by. Any questions for Scott? I think we're good. Thank you very much. Okay, Jeffy Girgenti is here. Jeffy, are you here?
I am.
Oh, you come in.
Thank you so
Hi.
much. We
Sure.
have been campaigning all day, and Christina is running for District 5. So David and I went and helped her walk her district. She needs 750 signatures. So I apologize that we were late. But thank you so much, Shelley, for having me. There's several people in here that have endorsed me, and I want to say thank you so much for your endorsement. I haven't had a minute to get back to you. We've been campaigning almost every day. So I am running for LA County Supervisor District 3. My paperwork is in. My filing fee is collected, and I couldn't get a date for the 1st of March or the first week of this week because they were all booked. So we will get everything in and paid for next Wednesday, and I've collected half of the fee for my ballot statement, which is $12,000. So we've been working hard to collect money for that. I will have a ballot statement this time, which is so exciting because I didn't have that when I ran for assembly. But I spent yesterday at Whiteman Airport. They're trying to close Whiteman Airport. I got to meet with probably 300 or 400 people about it, and nobody wants to close that airport, nor should they. That airport is extremely important to the Valley in that anytime there's fires, all of our water planes will land at Whiteman Airport. Any emergencies are done through Whiteman Airport. And the most important thing about Whiteman Airport is the amount of things they do for our kids. They have this Saturday, if you have any kids or grandchildren, they offer free flights so that kids get an idea of what aeronautics is about. They're one of the only places left that do anything like this. Kids can get involved from 13 to 17 and a half and build an airplane right now. There, if you look on my website, you'll see the video that we did of me helping with them showing me them building the airplane. But then there's also, I'm an equestrian. I don't know if a lot of you know that I do ride. I'm a jumper. I ride out in Thousand Oaks. That's where my horse is. And tomorrow's a rodeo. And the importance of this rodeo is something extremely, extremely important. And even though it doesn't work directly in my district all the time for most of my district, but the LA City Council is trying to get rid of the rodeos in LA City, which means LAEC, the Los Angeles Equestrian Center, will no longer be able to have any kind of equestrian shows. The reason why is they're trying to outlaw the different pieces of equipment that they use in rodeos. But significantly, they want to outlaw the straight spur. What is a straight spur? It's a little piece at the end of a spur that we use to get our horses off the ground when we want to jump them. It's what we'll use to encourage them to go forward. It's what we let them know to how to work with them. It's an aid, just like a collar that you use on a dog. They want to make that illegal. And when they do that, that means that when the Olympics come in 2028, the equestrian events will not be able to be held in LA City at all, because the dressage riders, the jumper riders that are in the Olympics, and the eventers that are in the Olympics they all use a spur of some sort or another. They will be legal. So tomorrow we're going to be at Crypto Center, which is the previous Staples Center for that. But the most important thing we need to talk about is my opponent, my number one opponent. I have 3 opponents. Number 1 is Bob Hertzberg. Bob Hertzberg, if you go back and look at the LA Times article of January 2022, at the very end of that article, he talks about a bond measure that's really, really important that we all need to know about. And, you know, Susan, you're going to hate this bond measure if you haven't heard about it, because they're going to add a bond measure onto our property taxes for $25 billion. And that bond that he wants to create when he thinks he's going to be the LA County Supervisor in District 3 is to give loans to low-income families for down payments on new housing. How does that work with the rodeo and what I just discussed? Well, if they make rodeos illegal and they start going after our riding equipment, what that means is that all of our equestrians will have to move out of LA City, because they're not going to be able to compete. What's the point of having their horses in the charo world or any of the multiple disciplines that are in equestrian? Many of us ride and many of us compete there because the LAEC is an inexpensive place for us to compete, and they make it affordable. So what they'll do is they'll go after those equestrian properties and Whiteman Airport for all that low-cost housing that they can build, because it's got to be for new housing only. So now our taxpayers are going to pay. We own our homes or our buildings, whether it's commercial or apartment or whatever it is. We're going to be taxed in a bond measure to pay for these people to have a low-income family down payment on a home. Now, how important is that going to be? Do we want to pay for that? Not really. But Bob Hertzberg is going to make a killing. He's going to make a killing on the bonds because he was in Wall Street. So we all know that the bonds get 100% of interest payback. So that's going to cost us $50 billion. Then he's going to make money on the contractors because he's going to know who those new contractors are that are going to get those contracts to build that new home. And then he's going to make money on what was the other part, David?
The bond market.
The bond market. So he's going to make money on all three areas when it comes to that. This is an important issue. These are things that nobody is speaking about. But my other opponent is Henry Stern. He says he's running. He's got a number to run, but his website has been very minuscule. And then, of course, we have Lindsey Harvey, who was the mayor for West Hollywood. She is endorsed by Ms. Kuehl, so I think that's going to be a problem as well. But I do need your support, and I certainly hope that all of you will be able to support me. And Scott, I just want to let you know, I live in your district. I'm in Woodland Hills, so you automatically have my vote, my friend. And if you'd like to do some campaigning together, let me know. I've been walking my district, and I'll be happy to walk it with you as well. Thank you all so much for letting me spend 5 minutes to speak to you. I'm so grateful, and you guys have a great evening. And I'm really grateful to be a part of this. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Jeffy. Aaron had a question about the straight spurs. I think it was. What was your
Yes.
question, Aaron? It was in the chat.
Is this a rowel? Okay, so there's a rowel. So what it is they want to make the rowel illegal. I just got off the phone this afternoon. I had a meeting with them. The round rowel is what they use for the bull riding. And what it does is these are not tools that damage people. I spoke with Dale Gibson, and then there was another gentleman, Dave, I'm gonna massacre his name, Bouquet, who is in Oregon, and he was in charge of Western Justice. He was the one that got Trump to pardon the two cowboys in Texas over the fence. So he's heavily involved in this. The rowel is what they're going after, but what they're saying is they're going to go after the straight spur after that. The problem is, and what people don't realize is once they go after our spurs, it's a key interest of what we use. They're just going to go after everything. And all these horse owners are going to have a problem because once they do it in the city council and they get away with it, then they're going to go to this, then they're going to go to county, and from county, they'll go to state, and it will filter through because they want our equestrian properties.
Okay, well, Jeffy, thank you for stopping by, and thank you for sharing information about your campaign with us. Much appreciated. Are there any other candidates in the room who've come in? Okay, Craig, welcome. How do you
Thank
pronounce your last name, Craig?
Grivey.
Okay, welcome, running for mayor of Los Angeles.
Yes.
Tell us
thank
about
you
your
so much.
campaign.
Thank you. I am the only true outsider in the race for mayor in Los Angeles. I come from a successful 20-year career in private enterprise where my job was focused on some of the most difficult and intractable solutions for some of America's most trusted corporations. My job was to solve what were seemingly impossible problems for businesses many times the size of Los Angeles. Over the course of 2021, I built the fastest growing grassroots movement focused on common ground and common sense going into these coming elections in LA City called Rise Together, and then stepped away at the end of November because we didn't see a candidate focused on common ground and common sense in the mayor's race. I joined the race as the only candidate with published, concrete, and vetted plans in homelessness, affordability, crime, and corruption. I'm still the only candidate with actual, real plans that have been vetted in each of those areas. That includes, in homelessness, for example, not doubling down on the failing solutions that we spent billions of dollars in, but instead focusing on replicating the success of 14 other cities in America that have moved to functional zero homelessness, all for less than what we're spending now, getting 50% of the homeless off the street in under 9 months and moving us to functional zero in under 4 years with no need for additional funding, because the question is not how much money we have, it's how we're spending it. In crime, my plan puts 3,000 officers who are currently dealing with the equivalent of 3,000 officers who are currently dealing with homelessness back on patrol, engaging our communities, while also focusing on prosecuting misdemeanors within LA city limits so that we're overcoming the handicaps of the disaster that is the DA. Was the first mayoral candidate to call for his recall so that we could actually restore public safety. In affordability, I'm the only candidate to pledge to allow us to build the units we need to make homes and housing and apartments affordable so that within 10 years, we can move to a standard, the economic standard, that mortgages and rent should not be more than 30% of your income based on having an actual market. But I'm the only candidate with actual plans to do that, developed with community leaders, nonprofits, and general contractors, developers, so that we're focused not just on building those units, but on preserving neighborhoods and communities. I'm the only candidate to make a pledge to preserve neighborhoods and communities while we build additional housing to expand our capacity. And then finally, a comprehensive anti-corruption plan that allows us to root out not just the 3 city council officials that have been indicted in the last 20 months, but the 5 more under open federal investigation, including several people running against me in this race. I pride myself on the fact that I am the only candidate who did not have a hand in creating our solutions. And I'm also the only candidate with a proven track record, decades long, of being able to solve some of the most complex issues for some of America's largest corporations, and to bring that same know-how, that same skill and experience towards the mayor's office in this race.
Very good. Tell us your website and then maybe some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. My website, because my last name is impossible to pronounce, is simple. It's craigformayor.com. You can find us on social media everywhere at Craig for Mayor LA as well.
Okay. And are there any questions for Craig? Anybody?
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for dropping by. Are there any other candidates in the room? Anybody come in who's a candidate? Well, if not, then let's move on to the other ballot initiative that we're here to talk about tonight, which is the Repeal the Death Tax initiative. Whoops.
Susan?
Yes.
I think Tony had his hand up. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Tony, do you have a
comment.
question?
Well, actually, having heard all the candidates, it was a comment about our city election, because I know all of us feel very strongly about, I am sure, social justice issues, postmodern theories. But the reality, if you look at SB 9 and John's presentation, is that this is an election where both parties are on the national level, and we are only one party, of course, in California, but the Democratic Party, even for Democrats, is in control of what I call the corporate Democrats. So we've got elected officials, and this applies to everybody in the city council too, who are in league with their campaign funding corporate sponsors. I mean, that's why we've got SB 9 and SB 10. It's a gift to real estate developers. Yes, they have a social agenda behind it, but it's basically a gift to big money real estate developers. So when we're out there talking with the public, because we are going to need people who aren't conservative to vote for people who are opposition candidates, I hope that we can all make people realize that the people that have been elected in this city do not represent us. I mean, the broader us. You know, I'm a low-income senior living in the Northeast Valley. I mean, the us is not a political party in this election. Us is the people who are getting screwed universally by everybody who's in charge of the city and the county. So I mean, I think that I hope everybody can keep that in mind. At least that's my personal hope, because this is an election we're not going to win unless we have more people than just the people who come to Valley vote behind us. Thank you.
Although the people who come to Valley vote totally rock. Just want to say that. Thank you all for being here. Any more questions? Any more comments before we get to repeal the death tax? I don't see any hands. Aaron, any hands that I'm missing? Well, okay. Let's talk about what happened with Proposition 19? In November 2020, Proposition 19.
Yes, I see
Aaron?
one hand up. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Cindy has her hand up. I'll
Cindy,
unmute it.
okay.
Shelley, thank you.
Sure. Was there a
Okay.
question? She's muted again.
I think she did not have a question.
She
so
did
put
not
her
have a
hand down.
question. Okay. Now, can we talk about repeal the death tax?
Yes.
I'm going to, whether you guys like it or not, because it's really important. In November 2020, Proposition 19 was on the ballot, and it appeared to be about wildfire victims, seniors, and seriously disabled people being able to move to a new home and take their old property tax bill with them. And it was about that, and it did do that, but it did something else. It repealed constitutional rights that had been in the state constitution since the 1980s. It repealed the ability for parents to transfer property to their children without having it reassessed to market value when it was transferred. It repealed that. We had that on the books since 1986. What happened originally was Proposition 13 was passed in 1978 in a terribly inflationary situation like we're in now. And people were being reassessed to market value, and their taxes were going up every year, every 2 years to unaffordable prices because the statewide average tax rate was 2.67% of the market value of your home. 2.67% of the market value of your home. Think about paying that every year. Well, people couldn't. So Prop 13 put a cap on how much the assessed value could go up until there was a change of ownership. The cap was 2%. The longer you held the property, the less you were paying relative to the market rate. So that was very good for stability, and it did allow for increased revenue every year, which we still have, increased revenue every year. But what happened when people inherited property after that 1978 measure passed, people inherited property, it was a change of ownership under the law. No one could afford those property taxes. And so intense was the political pressure in California that the legislature passed unanimously an exemption for property transfers between parents and children from reassessment. That was put on the ballot with a unanimous vote of the legislature and passed by 75% of the voters. That was Proposition 58. It said that a parent could transfer to a child a home of any value and a limited amount of other property. And the other property was a rental home, a duplex, a small apartment building, a business property, anything that was not the primary residence, to a total of $1 million of assessed value. So a small amount relatively of other property, and the home could be transferred without reassessment. Proposition 19 took that away. It's gone. And now when property is passed from parents to children, it is reassessed to current market value. And there are a few exceptions that you can maybe qualify for. If it's a primary residence and you make it your primary residence, if you inherit it within 1 year and stay there permanently, you can have an exclusion from reassessment that's capped at $1 million plus the assessed value that was existing before. So essentially what this means is everybody gets a tax increase in California. You inherit property, the property taxes are going to go up even if you move into it. And for small business properties, no exclusions at all, reassessed to market value. Well, what happens to all the small businesses like restaurants, the small businesses like apartment buildings, mom and pop apartment buildings, reassessed to market value? What happens to the tenants? The rent goes up, or perhaps if the rent can't go up because of rent control, the building gets sold, everybody gets evicted. In one generation, this could wipe out affordable housing throughout California. Every older building that's owned by a mom and pop landlord, when it's inherited, will be impossible to maintain as a business. That's disastrous. So to fix this problem, the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association has filed an initiative that puts back the law the way it was, not the part of Prop 19 that involves portability. That stays, just the part that involves the parent-child transfers and also grandparent-grandchild transfers, which was another proposition 10 years later. So repeal the Death Tax Act. These are the door hangers. You can get these door hangers. You can get cards. You can get petitions. You have cards that look like this, and they have QR codes on the back that you can use when you're gathering signatures. If you're interested in doing this, if you're interested in helping, needs 1 million signatures by April 15th. There are currently, I am told, 7,000 plus volunteers walking the state collecting signatures. We had 4,000, I think 4,300 we're up to on our sign up sheet. And then we have an additional 3,000 who have signed up through the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association membership materials. So it's about 7,000 people who are collecting signatures. But even at that, time is really short. And it's very, very, very difficult to qualify an initiative with a grassroots effort. It's only been done once, and the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association did it. So you can't count us out on this. I think this is very important. It's important, as I said, for rental housing. It's important for stability of neighborhoods, because if children inherit a house and they can't live in it, and the tax bill goes up immediately, they get the tax bill in the mail with the sympathy cards, they're going to have to sell. Well, who's going to buy? Probably Wall Street, probably investors will buy all these properties. And this whole middle class will lose property ownership. They'll have the cash, but the cash is deteriorating as inflation rages. The assets appreciate, but the asset's going to belong to somebody else. And all of these children, adult children who are inheriting property in California, will be forced by higher taxes to sell it. And why? Why? There's no reason for it. And the voters did not really understand that this was in there because there was so much noise in the campaign about the other part of Prop 19, not to mention all the noise in the 2020 election generally. So we don't think voters really knew about this, and our polling bears that out at HJTA. So that's the story. And if you want to get the petition, go to hjta.org, hjta.org. You'll see a red flashing light at the top. Click that. That will take you to the Repeal the Death Tax website, and you can get the petition. You can have it mailed to you. You can go and pick it up at more and more locations every day. And we would like to have a map, and I'll talk to you about that, Aaron, about doing a map. So you can get the petition. You can get a bunch of them. You can get a couple of them. You can get door hangers if you want them. You can get cards and flyers and all kinds of stuff to help promote it, imprinted pens and buttons and everything that we have to help educate people about how important this is. It's very difficult to do a statewide campaign. The Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association has a staff of about 5 people working on it in 2 cities. I don't know. We're going to see. Happy to take any questions on that, if there are any. Thank you, Benito. Benito says he'll start sharing while campaigning. Tony?
I want to think positively. We will get the signatures by April 15th. However, if you don't, can we get the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association to immediately go out for another petition, just like John Heath is doing with his, targeting 2024, so that during this election year, we can keep on collecting? Do you see what I'm saying? I don't want this to die if the signatures aren't collected. There may be a couple of months at us while they're counted to see if they're adequate, assuming we get what, but even if they don't succeed, I think that we hopefully should be continuing this one, just like the John Heath's thing on the SB9.
That would certainly be my desire. It would be up to the board at Howard Jarvis whether they wanted to continue it, but I think they might. There's such intense interest. Can you remember the last time a campaign signed up more than 4,000 volunteers on a web page? Can you remember a time when we've had so many people so active on an issue? And it's because as people find out about this, they're horrified. They're horrified that
That's why
property
I
is going to be just seized as it goes between generations.
The thing is, it's so hard to get it in such a short time without big money, professional. The likelihood, it's less than 50%, but the likelihood, because everybody does care about this, is 100%, as long as people are told about it. That's why I'm really hoping, and actually my old fraternity brother, Rich Gann, don't forget it wasn't just Howard Jarvis, it was Mr. Gann too. The two of them made the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association. He's my fraternity brother's dad. So, but at any rate, you know, I go way back to that organization, but I think that their heart is in the right place and they would continue it if we asked them.
I think you're right. And I certainly intend to, but I think we might make it. You know, with professional signature gathering, they have, it's one of the reasons it's expensive is they have a lot of personnel that's like riding herd on everybody and saying, how many did you get today, and send them in, and how many, you know, send a scan, and they don't get paid unless they turn in their signatures. So they turn in their signatures. Well, we have a volunteer effort and people are not all turning in their signatures. They're stacking them up on the table. In fact, I discovered in my research that in 1977, Howard Jarvis personally did a commercial on radio. He bought a month of airtime on radio, and this was the copy. There are thousands and thousands of you out there who have petitions sitting on your table where they don't do us any good. You must send them in or we will lose. And this was his message. His table pounding message was send back the petitions. So we're going to see if we can do that. See if we can get someone who does a better impression of Howard Jarvis than I do to do the audio, and we will do a radio commercial if we can. You know, we're trying to raise as much money as we need to do that. It's a steep climb, but we do have a commitment to our volunteers that we will get 2.5 million signature slots out there. We need 1.5 million to make sure we make it. We're going to get 2.5 million worth of petitions out there, and they have to come back. And I hope they do. They'll probably all come back the same week and overwhelm our Sacramento office, and they will put out a hit on me, and I'll be calling all of you for protection. So stand by. Other questions?
Susan, your impression of Mr. Jarvis was spot on.
Yeah, if they ever make a remake of Airplane, I'm going to be in the back seat of the cab. Other questions, other thoughts, other comments, anything on anybody's mind? Well,
Hi. Susan, I have a comment. Just a simple phrase. Repeal the death tax and protect the strength of your family. Simple for your future heirs. Simple statement. That's what we're about here now.
Email your whole list. Ernie, email your whole list with our link, hjta.org/repeal the death tax. Get the word out. We have door hangers. We have cards. We have petitions. I've been busy.
And we'll protect you if anyone puts a hit on you. We'll make sure it doesn't happen.
They're going to be so mad at me when a million signatures worth of petitions comes back the same week, because everybody sends them back the first week of April, and they stack up like a fire hazard in that Sacramento office. You're going to hear the rumble. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. It is very difficult, but we're making a lot of progress, and I really hope that we can do this. Other comments, other thoughts before we wrap it up for the evening? Okay. Well, thank you everybody for being with us. We hope to be back in person for our March meeting, the third Monday in March at Galpin Ford in the Mustang conference room above the showroom. We'll see if we can get our paperwork problems resolved, and we hope to see you there. Topic to be named later. Suggestions are welcome. And thank you all for being here with Valley Vote today. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Click the three little dots to save your chat.
Where are they?
In the lower right-hand corner of the chat button. If you click chat at the bottom of your screen, it will pop up on the right, a chat window. And then at the bottom of the chat window, where it says type message here, over on the right-hand side, there are three little dots.
Got it.
And you click on that and it pops up a thing saying save chat. And if you click that, it saves it on your computer as a text file.
Great.
Thanks again, everybody. And Tony, thanks for your email, sir. I'll be in touch.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, John. And thanks for coming and talking to us.
My pleasure. Have a good night, guys.
You will. Bye-bye.